And we're live, probably. Somebody's getting all kinds of emails or something.
Not
That'd
me.
be me.
Oh,
Shit. You didn't hear that.
Nope.
Nope. I've never heard him say a word like that before. I'm appalled.
That would be me. I don't want to close that. I want to go. But you just closed it, didn't you?
I'm notorious for closing something, thinking I'm just closing a little window, but I've shut down the whole one of my things that I keep open all the time.
Heard him say a word like that before. I'm appalled.
That would be me.
All right.
I don't want to close that. I want to go. But you just closed it, didn't you?
You just opened up YouTube, didn't you, Margaret?
Yes. I didn't want to do that
I'm
either.
notorious for closing something, thinking I'm just closing a little window, but I've shut down the whole one of my things that I keep open all the time.
Heard him say a word like that before. I'm appalled.
That would be me.
All right.
Let's get rid of here.
All right. And my mother just dropped out. I do not understand why my kitchen messes with, like, I'll drop phone calls in my kitchen. And the thing is, it's not but 15 feet from my modem that carries throughout the entire house. But my kitchen is weird.
There must be something in the kitchen that's causing some interference with the signal.
There must be. There must be.
Maybe
But-
some kind of a plot, some kind of thing that's,
Yeah, but it's annoying.
yeah.
All right. So let's go on to, that's not how you do it. All right, this is, now, do it this way. And slideshow. So we are on John chapter 2. The living room. And we start off with the wedding at Cana in Galilee. And so if we hang on for just a second. Because I'm guessing my mother is about to jump back in. All right, well, let's go ahead. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And said to her, hang on. And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." They remained there a few days. Okay, that, I don't know where that came from. I don't think that's part of this. Now, standing there, Diane, is it just me and you right now?
I think it is. You, me, and Susan. I think Susan's still there. Susan, are you still here? Okay, so it's you, me, and Susan.
Okay, well, let's hang on. This is going to be a heck of a recording for anybody watching.
There's
And my
your
mother's
mother.
here. And Margaret and Steve dropped out.
I think Margaret was working on her email, and the window she closed that she didn't mean to.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what happened. Sounds like she had every window in the thing open. Last time that happened to me, it was a virus. I hope that's not what happened to her, where everything kept opening and closing. And
Yeah. Well, I was telling Susan, I had a fraudulent charge on my Visa. And so the bank, they, just canceled the card and send me a new one. And so I had been struggling with trying to get my iCloud thing that I have every month to pay Apple for my iCloud storage, to delete a card and add a card. And it was taking forever. And so I was actually on the phone with Apple support. And then she's going to call me back because we didn't quite finish what we were going to do. But I told her I had Bible study. And so she got me. I said, I've got to be through by 11 o'clock. So.
And my mother just dropped out again. I don't know what in the world's going on in my house that she's not getting good connection. All right. So let's start this again. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever they tell you." And I think that they remained there a few days, that might have gotten left over from another spot. So now standing there was 6 stone water jars from the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with wine," and they filled them up to the brim.
Water.
He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine. But after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they remained there a few days. That would be where that part came from. Okay. Now I get to see who has left us. My mother's screen is blank, but is she there?
There
She is.
she just popped in.
Mama, you want to tell me what the problem is? Are you on your iPad or your computer? She's frozen again.
Frozen.
I promise you, my internet is strong enough to carry a Zoom meeting. You probably ought to go in and forget the network and reconnect completely. So read through that and then we'll talk about it. Okay, we'll see if it works this time. Oh, she just used her phone. I don't know what's going on.
It apparently is not a good day for technology.
Apparently not.
I've been struggling all morning.
Margaret's computer's blowing up, and mine's awfully dark. So what did you hear in that story? Did anything stand out maybe that you hadn't heard before, or?
Well, this one I've heard so many times, and I was just looking at my version. You know, the thing that sort of has always, and maybe it's just the way they spoke, but just about every translation I've ever heard starts with Jesus saying woman. Okay. And I've always thought it was weird for him to say woman to his mother, because I would be shocked if one of my sons said woman to me. And so that's the thing that I've always wondered about.
Well, I think the entire exchange is weird.
Well,
because first, and I think some of it is Jesus responded to his mother that way because he's coming into his own.
Right, possibly. Yeah.
Because first of all, she, one of my commentaries said it comes across as a nagging mother.
Well, it does come across. I mean, it comes across that way.
And then he responds to her like the Lord.
Yeah.
And she completely ignores him.
Right. And just says, do something.
Yeah, well, no, she turns to them like, I mean, the whole thing is comical because, yeah. I mean, knowing who Jesus is, you get this, the mother, which incidentally, the word Mary, the name Mary for Jesus's mother is never said in John's gospel. It's always the mother of the Lord's mother or the mother of the Lord.
Oh, okay. I'd never.
And so in that, what you have is, she, like I said, sort of, you need to do something. And then he comes back with, woman, don't be telling me my business.
Right.
And then again, she completely ignores his response. I mean, it's just like he didn't even say anything because he said, my time's not now. And she's like, whatever. Do whatever he tells you to do.
Right.
But he said no. And she completely ignored his answer. Which is, like I said, it's really a funny. Mom, do you mean to have your hand over what we're seeing? And you're muted.
Well, it almost
You're muted.
Could sound like a conversation between a son, sons and a mother, because you're both somewhere. They obviously did not come together. He was with the disciples. She was there. They were there at the same place, but it doesn't seem that they weren't traveling together. And so, she sees a problem and tells him to address it. And then he says, no. And then she just says, tell him what,
Yeah.
do what he says. Because you say thing, she's expecting him to do something, even though he really said he didn't want to do it. Which is sort of like when you tell your sons to take out the garbage and then they come up with some reason why they shouldn't. And then you just say, well, do it,
Or not even that, after you've taken out the garbage, just ignore the fact that they said that.
Right. So it is a strange interchange, of the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean it truly is.
Mhm.
But then it goes on that Jesus takes these big jugs. Now these jugs are for the Jewish rites of purification. Now these are massive jugs. They're probably about 3.5 feet tall. And now something that I read recently that was really intriguing to me was this. They were for the Jewish rites of purification. Do you know what that is?
Well, you mentioned it when you were talking about John's baptism, baptizing for purification, and what did you say? Not just not purification.
Well, the Jewish rite of purification that's where they would wash their hands.
Oh, okay.
That's what those jugs were used for. They were for hand washing.
Okay.
So it wasn't just jugs of water. It was jugs of dirty water. I mean, that's what that water was for. And so now it may be, though, it may not be that they had their hands in the water. It may be that they poured the water on. But either way, that was not there for drinking. That was there for washing. And that's what Jesus turned into wine. Now, there's a few things about the story that culturally that are important. First of all, I taught a class last week at Camp Kindred on the history of alcohol in the church, which was very fascinating. Well, of course it was fascinating. I taught it, but no, the things that I learned were very fascinating. And it was one of the more interesting pieces was that long about the Prohibition, which, by the way, were brought on by the Methodists. Did you know that? The Methodists were the ones that led the charge for Prohibition. They had some splaining to do when it came to alcohol in the Bible. And so there was a two wines theory. There was wine that would get people drunk, and then there was wine that wasn't fermented, which was grape juice. Bullcrap. Okay. Because the reason that everyone drank wine or beer actually was because it was clean. Water would kill them. That, I mean, or at least make them very sick. And so they drank stuff that was purified. They didn't have pasteurization. They didn't know that boiling water would purify it. So they made wine. And so that's what people would drink. Now, this wedding party, the wedding parties, and it said that they stayed there for a few days. The wedding parties lasted days. These weren't like the few hours of reception that we go in. I mean, they were like, it wasn't strange that the wine would give out. But that was a horrible embarrassment. You did not want that to happen. And apparently it was still early in the wedding feast. Because, you threw this big party and, you just like if you were throwing a wedding reception, you wouldn't want the food to run out. That would be awful.
Right.
Well, I mean, same with this. They didn't want the wine to run out because then the party's over. And you don't want the party to be over. And so Jesus, for the sake of their embarrassment, does his first miracle. That was the whole thing. It wasn't, that's really one of the craziest parts about this. Jesus wasn't giving sight to the blind. He wasn't casting out a demon. He wasn't changing anybody's life. He was changing a party. He was making sure that the party still went on for the sake of somebody's pride. I mean, that was the purpose of the miracle. However, this is John's gospel. And in John's gospel, most things have two meanings. There is the initial meaning, and then there's a symbolic meaning. And the symbolic meaning, there's a lot of them. Number one, Jesus shows up in a common everyday place. You know, people get married. And if you don't get married, you know people that do. This is common life. And it's not where you would expect the Messiah to show up. You wouldn't expect the Messiah to show up at normal everyday things. But this one does.
Sort of like what you said, the children's sermon talking about churchy things. He did things that weren't churchy things.
Well, and in John's gospel, the signs that Jesus does are always at festivals and parties. Jesus loved a good party in John's gospel. And this starts it off. Also, with this, it's important to note that that Jesus, what with the cleansing and turning dirty things into wonderful things, that's symbolism there. And also that the best wine comes in second, symbolic of the new covenant that is being brought about, because the best wine happens later. Most people serve the good wine first, and then when everybody gets drunk, they bring in the inferior wine. But here is the superior wine, because what the chapter 2 does. Chapter 2 tells the entire story symbolically in one chapter. Okay, and we'll see that how it finishes in a minute. But what we see here at the beginning is Jesus bringing glory into the lives of people, bringing glory, bringing joy, bringing what is superior into the lives of the people. It's almost like the incarnation story in John is the changing water into wine. But this is the first sign that Jesus did. Now, it's possible that this was Nathanael's wedding, because we hear that he is from Cana in Galilee. Now, we don't know that for sure, but it could have been one of his disciples' weddings. So he was taking care of a buddy, hooking a buddy up with a better party. But again, this was the purpose of this entire thing, was to show A, that Jesus could do miraculous things, and B, that Jesus does miraculous things in daily life. Now, one of the cool things that I heard about was, because this is preached a lot at weddings, this comes up. He said that in a marriage, the wine always gives out eventually, but that's when Jesus kicks in. When the party seemingly comes to an end, there's Jesus there. And that'll preach at a wedding. I'm using that next time somebody picks this text. Because when the party's there, you've got the Lord bringing the party, bringing the good stuff. So that is the wedding at Cana in Galilee. Are there any questions other than Jesus being smarting off to his mama? Going once, going twice, comments, nothing. All right, well, let's move on to the second half of this chapter. The cleansing of the temple. The Passover of the Jews was near, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. in the temple, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and the money changers seated at their tables. Making a whip of cords, he drove all of them out of the temple, both the sheep and the cattle. He also poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. He told those who were selling the doves, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house into a marketplace." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then said to him, "What sign can you show us for doing this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews said to him, "This temple has been under construction for 46 years, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. When he was in Jerusalem during the Passover festival, many believed in his name because they saw the signs that he was doing. But Jesus, on his part, would not entrust himself to them because he knew all people and needed no one to testify about anyone, for he himself knew what was in everyone. All right, read through that one. Uh-oh. Let's see. Read through that, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about it. All right. So what do you hear in that?
It seems like somewhere I remember hearing or reading that unlike the movie pictures, it's not an overall destruction, but it's happening sort of on the side. It's like the money changers aren't just everywhere, they're sort of off to the side. But I don't know where I heard that or read it, Stephen, so I don't know if that's true.
Well, by the way, Diane, while y'all were looking at that, I looked at something about woman.
Oh, okay.
And here's something else that's interesting. When Jesus was on the cross in John's gospel, what did he say?
Oh, yeah.
Woman, here is your mother.
Yes.
Here, woman, here is your son, here is your mother. And he calls her woman there too.
Yeah.
But we don't blink at that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might just be how he referred to her.
That was the case. Because this one I think this one is sort of almost like argumentative.
Yeah, well, and it comes across that way.
But it
mainly because you're right. I mean, if I call woman, but when he's dying,
right,
he says this, he uses the same title for her.
Yeah.
So basically, every time he addresses his mother, he calls her woman in John's gospel.
Yeah, well, and see, that was what I was thinking, that it might just be a
Might be cultural.
day. It may just be, yeah.
All right. So Mommy, you heard somewhere that it was around on the outside.
Yeah, but
Well,
I don't know. I wish I could remember where I heard that.
I think that's where it was supposed to be. Here's the thing. All of those the money changers and and all the things that were being sold were necessary.
Mhm.
It was in the Old Testament that people had to bring these things for certain sin offerings to get right with God. If you'd have done this, if you did this, you need this sacrifice. This covers this sacrifice. And Roman money was not allowed to be used to purchase these things. So first place you went was to the money exchange place, just like you do when you enter a foreign country. And you get the money changed over from Roman money to temple money. And then you would go and take this money and purchase your sacrifice stuff. But the key here is that it says in the temple. And his problem was not that this business was being done, it was where it was being done. It was being done in the temple. And so, and it's probably also a social justice thing, in that there were people that the business is happening in the outer courts of the Gentiles, as if the Gentile worship wasn't important. And so it was they were in the outer courts, but they basically took up shop in the Gentile part. So the Gentiles didn't have a place to worship. And so, they were making his father's house into a marketplace. It would literally be as if we started selling stuff in the sanctuary. Now, for a long time, certain churches, probably every church at some point, would not sell things at church because of this passage. Yeah. But again, it's about location. Location. Outside the sanctuary is fine. It's inside the sanctuary that would be tacky. Even like these contemporary churches and stuff, I don't think many of them have their coffee bars inside the sanctuary. Most of them have them outside. You don't want to be buying and selling stuff in church. It's a place for worship. It's not a marketplace. And not only that, it's also kind of rude because there was a bunch of like animals and stuff in the court of the Gentiles. That's not cool, because then what comes with that? All the crap, literally. And so he drove them all out. Now, in the other three gospels, when does this happen?
At the end?
At the end. This is when like Jesus comes, does his triumphal entry, goes to the temple, and this is the very next thing. Because also in John, there are 3 Passovers. In the other gospels, there's only one, I think. But this is like the first Passover. He's in Jerusalem. And in the others, I don't believe that he goes to Jerusalem except for that one time at the end. Here he comes in and out of Jerusalem periodically, which would honestly make more sense. But what this also does from the get-go, he's already right here at the beginning of John, he becomes at odds with the Jewish officials. And, you know, it's not just people. Oh, this is my new phone. We have new phones at the church that we now have digital phone system. And like, so when you page somebody, you know, we can actually do it like FaceTime. So we can look at each other when we're talking, which is pretty cool. I don't know if somebody can FaceTime us on these phones, but we can FaceTime each other. But that was, and I changed the ringtone to that because that's not as alarming as what was there. But so anyway, in the temple was an issue. Next, the issue of Jesus' emotions. That's a big deal because many people for a long time have talked that Jesus, that it was wrong for people to get angry, that it was a sin. And here Jesus is sinless, and yet he's angry. So is it a sin to be angry?
God got angry. He was going to several times.
It's about what you do with the anger. Now, and even this would kind of border on, I'm not sure it's nice to, you know, take a whip to people, but it's almost like self-defense, or, you know, you commit a crime in protecting someone else.
Yeah.
Because he's protecting the sanctity of his father's house.
Yeah.
But like I said, he puts the Jews on notice that things are about to change.
Yeah.
That this ain't the way things need to be happening. And so their response is, who are you to say that? What sign are you going to give us? And so what sign does he say he's going to give them?
That the temple will be destroyed and returned in 3 days.
Yep. And that refers to what?
Jesus' body, resurrection.
Yeah, resurrection. And so, like I said, at the beginning of this chapter, it was that we see how Jesus comes in and says, this is what's going on, that, you know, the new wine, the good wine is coming into just the everyday lives of people. And then at the end, and we hear of the death and resurrection. So chapter 2 sets up basically the whole story. You know, the whole story of Jesus, how he's at odds, that they do end up tearing down this temple, and in 3 days it was raised up again. You know, and so this is a very telling piece of this. And so now there's an important word that they use throughout John, and that word is sign. Now, what is a sign? Mark, y'all are muted if you want to unmute.
An indication.
An indication. That's one. What does a sign do? Like if you see a street sign, what's the purpose of it? Tells you something. That's right. And it points to something other than itself, right? If you see a sign that says men's room or ladies' room, That's not the bathroom. That's the sign that points to the bathroom. If you pee on that sign, people will become upset. Right?
Right.
So it points to something greater than itself, other than itself. And so in this case, a sign is something that points to God. And so that's what they're talking about. Another word that we use for sign is a miracle. So typically, whenever you hear the word miracle or you hear sign, he's talking about miracle. So they're saying, what sign are you going to give us? What miracle are you going to perform here so that we'll believe you? You know, what cool thing are you going to do so that we can see? And so they want to see Jesus do something to prove that he has the right to do this, because clearly that means that they can do that. And so Jesus basically says, all right, tear this temple down and then we'll be good. And so with that, that's basically what bookends the entire this chapter. Like I said, bookends the entire book of John, the entire story of Jesus. And y'all just thought it was water to wine and Jesus cleansing the temple. At least that's what I thought it was before today. So, all right. Well, clearly my mother did not want to stay with us. So, here she is again.
She's having more technology problems, apparently.
Well, this is the last time she's going to come to Bible study from my house.
You hit it. I've been off more than I've been on.
Probably should forget the network and reconnect to it.
That's what I'm doing right now. Is it a capital L?
Yeah. And you're literally sitting, I mean, because the modem is behind you through that wall.
I wonder if there's something wrong with the modem right now.
Well, I'll find out soon enough.
All right, I've signed off and on my iPad, so I'm going to try going back on my iPad.
Well, we're about to close out. You might as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
But does anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions? All righty then. Well, we will see you all next week, if not before. So y'all have an excellent day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Oh, is your mom going to be still in the neighborhood tomorrow?
No, she is leaving today.
Oh.
She's going to Isle of Palms. In fact, I won't be there tomorrow either. I have a luncheon at the seminary that I have to attend.
Oh, okay. Because I was just going to say, if she's in the neighborhood, reminder of Golden Hearts.
Yeah, I'm actually, she's here using me as a hotel more than anything else this time.
That's right.
Her book club is going to the Coastal Retreat Center this weekend, or this week.
Oh, okay.
So I hope
I'm in a Zoom book club that started at the beginning of the pandemic. Do any of you all know Jane Mitchum?
Yes, I know Jane.
Okay. Well, Jane had a book group that met when she was pastor at Beth Eden, which is where Bill used to be.
Right.
And when the pandemic came, some of the ladies from Beth Eden said, well, Jane, can't we start it again and do Zoom? So we have ladies from Beth Eden, me and in Greensboro. We have 4 ladies in Lexington, 1 in Columbia, and 1 in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Now,
And 8 of the 12 of us are going to Isle of Palms.
that's wonderful.
So I'm looking forward to it.
It's nice.
Don't let me hear about y'all at my next board meeting, though.
We're only bringing eight bottles of wine. What trouble can we get into?
Well, in that many days, you should be fine. So
See, I knew Bill and Jane from Luther Ridge. That's how far back that goes. I mean, they were counselors at Luther Ridge when I was there.
Yep.
Last century.
That
Yeah.
was right at the beginning of Luther Ridge, wasn't it?
No,
Just about.
No, I think it was. No, I'm serious. I think it was.
no, I don't know the history of Luther Ridge. I just know that
Because
they went.
Dr. Thornburg was the head of it at that point, right?
Right.
Well, he was
Yes.
the first one.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, Luther Ridge is 65 years old or something.
That means I'm older than Luther Ridge.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that I know to be true.
Yeah.
I know to be true. But I think Jane and Mitch were among some of the first staff people there in the first. They were there in the first few years.
Yeah.
So
They
anyway,
were both counselors then, but they weren't married then.
yeah. Well, I don't know if that's where they met or not.
I think so.
They might even be the first couple to come out of Luther Ridge.
Might be.
All right. Well, y'all have a great day. I'll see you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.